So this is Crystal O'Loughlin from Angel Aid Cares, and I'm with Tammy Bock today. I'm so excited. I met Tammy a few weeks ago when we were talking about her sort of day in the life with leukodystrophy and rare disease. And Tammy was gracious enough to agree to join us today. And so here is Tammy. Hello.
Thank you.
Tammy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Tammy, the whole purpose of these conversations, this Rare Mother Roundtable, is to just give a glimpse into your day-to-day experience with rare disease, and also get a sense of, what it's like to be living in a world where there isn't a lot of time for self-care. So you're going to find that we keep redirecting back to, okay, what are you doing to take care of yourself? But give us a 411 on you. Give us sort of a day in the life of Tammy.
Sure. So I guess I would start out to say that obviously because we are in the rare community, it's constantly trying to get answers that even doctors don't know answers to sometimes. And so it's a lot of kind of doing some behind the scenes digging and asking questions of other moms. A lot of different appointment type setups, follow throughs, insurance issues, making sure I'm available and I've got everything scheduled and that she's prepped for whatever kind of tests or scans or whatever else might be going on.
So I'm gonna jump in and just back you up just a little bit. So where
Sure.
do you live?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Introduce yourself to our community because they haven't met you before, so they don't know your backstory.
Sure.
What's Tammy's backstory here?
I live in Chicago, down in the South Loop, which is near Soldier Field, with my husband and my daughter, Julia. Steve and I have been married about 3 years, so he is a true hero to embrace our family. I am able to do a little work from home in that we do board dogs or do daycare for dogs. I had set that up as a kind of a business to help Julia understand, responsibilities and things like that. I enjoy Pilates. I enjoy reading. I enjoy going on long walks. I'm currently at my mom's house. I'm in Ohio right now. This is the town I grew up in. And it's always nice to come back because it just feels like I can breathe a little bit. So that's kind of who I am. I've written a book about Julia and our experience. I am in the process of now editing it, and then hoping to put it out for print on Amazon. Hopefully no later than the beginning of November. So that's been quite an undertaking.
I bet. Well, first of all, what's the name of your book? So we can
Raising Julia.
Raising Julia. And how old is Julia?
She's 20.
She's 20. And what was your first moment where you realized that your journey as a rare mother may be a bit different than what you had expected?
Well, it kind of came in stages. And in the beginning, it was just more of a motor delay. Julia just wasn't walking and doing physical things as her peers. She was only about maybe 3 years old. And I brought it to my pediatrician's attention and she kind of blew it off. And so when I finally went to a neurologist, he just said that it's cerebral palsy and that it's never going to get worse and she's fine. Like, really, just don't worry about it. So I did. And then I realized after Julia started preschool that she couldn't run and jump and hop and skip and climb ladders like all of her other peers. And so I guess at that moment is really when I realized, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to figure out. That was really hard to have her peers, little 3, 4, 5-year-olds, playing outside, and Julia wasn't able to do a lot of the things they could. Going to birthday parties was the hardest because they are all physical in nature. And it was really tough for Julia to participate. So I couldn't be one of the moms standing in the corner having a glass of wine. I was out, and playing or doing whatever the kids were doing. It was overwhelming for both of us. So that's probably also when I started feeling that isolation, that I don't know what's going on here, but nobody else's kid is acting like this. And we're kind of like not fitting in.
Right.
So that was probably the beginning.
Was there anyone that you turned to in those early years? How did you manage your experience?
Well, my family is really been my biggest support. I turned to my sister, who had 2 older children. She was also studying to be a teacher. And my stepmom was an aide in high school here in my hometown. So those were 2 of the places, 2 people that I went to a lot. And it wasn't so much sometimes for advice as it just was for support. Sorry, I'm gonna start crying. And I just did a lot of digging myself and trying to figure out what's going on. I had no idea what physical therapy was, what occupational therapy was. I didn't, the first time Julia had an MRI, it was, I wrote about it because it was in an older, our children's hospital is now moved, but this is where it was in its older location. And it was in the basement of the hospital. So there were no windows. There were maybe a couple little cheery, signs here and there. It was dreadful. She had to be sedated. It was the first time ever I've experienced that. She would not cooperate at all with the process. They actually tried to give her some liquid Valium, basically, and she just spit it out. So it took at least 4 of us holding her down, wrapped in sheets, to get the needle in her.
And no one prepared you for this experience. They didn't brief you ahead of time, and
I was by myself. Her father, biological father, was there was no support from him. So it was just me and Julia.
wow.
And so, I see them hooking her up to all these leads. And, I asked, well, why? Well, we're going to monitor her the whole time. And I'm like, well, why? Well, because she's been sedated. Okay, so they allowed me to kind of sit outside of the room. And then she was in there for probably about an hour, and I was just on pins and needles. Then we wheeled her over to recovery, and I'll never forget this. She was kind of coming in and out, and she was really agitated. She was really upset. And there was I don't know if he was a nurse or what he was, but he said, yeah, we see kids like her kind of responding to coming out of sedation. And I thought to myself, what do you mean kids like her? Like, what are you saying? And so I was able to kind of soothe her and get her back out. But that whole day was so incredibly surreal. That was really our first medical experience. And from that day, my world just completely shifted. It just, and it was not fun because I wanted her to be with these kids. I wanted to be with some of these moms. I wanted to have the play dates and all that stuff. And it could not happen.
That's
And
not
again,
the
it
way.
was
Yeah.
very, very isolating.
Very isolating and traumatizing. Medical trauma, right? With
Yep.
good intention and certainly needed, but if if you had known ahead of time, if there had been a briefing, if there had been an opportunity to plan, maybe maybe
Yeah, I had no
The
idea what to
Valium could
expect.
have been delivered earlier in the day
Right.
before you even arrived at the hospital, all of those things. So what would you tell a young mother that is early in her experience working with hospitals and working with the medical establishment? Um, if you knew then what you know now, do you have advice there?
Well,
That's a big question, I know, but
it's funny you say that because there's this one mom in particular. She's very young, and her son's only 3, and they haven't diagnosed him quite yet. And she's in the UK, and we are constantly in conversation. And trust your gut, trust your gut instinct, and don't be afraid to ask questions and assert yourself. It took me 2 or 3 times to let these nurses know that if they're going to sedate her without incident, it needs to be fast and coordinated. And that, some doctors can be very intimidating. Some think they know more than you do, but you are the expert on your child.
mm,
That's it. And everything else is there to support and, give your child the best life possible, but you're the expert. And don't let the medical field intimidate you, and don't be afraid to just keep asking questions.
that's good advice. That's good advice. And so here we are 20 years later, and you were talking about the isolation that you were feeling early in Julia's life and in your role as a rare mother. Has that feeling left you? Does it stay with you? What have you done to address it? What are your
It's it's certainly not anywhere where it used to be. Um, and that's probably only been in the last couple of years, actually, since I've met my husband, because he's right there with me, understanding and learning and asking questions and going to the appointments. And so I finally have a partner that I can kind of put some of that angst on, let him share in that. Prior to that, I had a set of friends, and 2 or 3 of them had special needs kids, not rare, but just special needs kids. And it always pissed me off because by then we knew it was leukodystrophy. They never asked how she was. Nobody ever said, how is she doing? What's going on? What do you know? And I just felt like people just didn't want to know. They didn't care. I don't know if they were too afraid to ask, but I remember melting down one time. We were sitting around having some wine, and it was about Julia, and I can't remember what it was. And they're like, oh, why don't you just go lay down? So it, I guess there's this kind of a veil in society where we want to be polite and we want to be understanding, but some people just don't have the capability to go further. And that's when you kind of know who your true friends are and who aren't. Um, I can see from the outside when you have a friend who's got a daughter with a rare disability that's life-threatening. That's a really weird subject. I just, like I said, now that I've been married, we've been together about 6 years. It's gotten a lot better.
Wow. Wow. I'm so glad that you found that relief in your partner.
Yeah.
Have you found relief in other places outside of the home, either through your community or through the leukodystrophy community? You know, have you found relief? And I'm just going to take a moment to say hello. There's been a few moms that have joined the roundtable. Welcome. We're hearing from Tammy, and when we get to the halfway point of the hour, then we'll open it up for questions. But right now, we're just having a conversation. So welcome. But yeah, Tammy, where else have you found relief in the last?
Um, I'd say it's not really relief that I find externally. Um,
Mm,
I am friends with some of our moms and we chat about our kids. Um, but I've taken to Pilates, which has been a real godsend because for that 50 minutes, you're solely focused on your own body. I've been in therapy forever. And I just kind of started to dive into just recently this whole concept of mindfulness.
mm,
Um, how to be a little bit more present and not worrying about the past or the future. Kind of just trying to be a little bit more not so reactive. Um, school's starting soon. That's always a time that, especially with the pandemic, they're going to require masks. What's that all going to look like? Um, it's a time where I'm really trying to find some other healthy way to kind of, get my thinking shifted. And I realize when I can do that, it helps tremendously.
mm,
Um, there was an article, I haven't read it yet, I haven't had time, but it says the wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So in other words, wandering around, thinking about things, worrying about the future, blah, 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 it can leave you more and more depressed. So, it's a work in progress.
mm, mm. And you made a decision to write a book, to share
Yes.
this experience. What do you hope um, readers of your book will learn, feel? What was your driver? Because I got to imagine you sit down to write every day and you're like, okay, this is challenging. I'm going to do this again today.
Well, it's funny because when this whole thing started, I took to writing, just kind of journaling, if you will. And so I started this thing like 12, 13 years ago. And then I couldn't go any further because it was just way too intense. So it's only been like within the last year that I was able to pick it back up. When Julia was diagnosed, I can't tell you how much time I spent at Barnes and Noble just going back and forth through the parenting section. I wanted to make sure that it was okay for me to feel all this anxiety and different things and not having answers, and just that it consumed my life. And I really couldn't find another book that just told an honest journey. And so I say in the foreword of my book that my hope is that others can read this, and though we might not have the same diagnosis, I firmly believe we all go through a very similar journey with, discovering and questions and all these things that just meld in and out. And I really think it's important for especially newly diagnosed to understand that, you're not alone. And, if it can bring some peace of mind to somebody to just read this and say, okay, well, at least somebody else understands. That's what I want. I want people to understand what it's like.
That is so beautiful. And that is exactly what we need more of. We need more voices like yours, Tammy. So I'm just going to say thank you so much. This was kind of the interview portion of the conversation. And are there any sort of final thoughts that you want to make sure you get out in talking to our Rare Mother community before we move into kind of a roundtable discussion?
Yes, and this just happened recently because we went to CHOP, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, in July for our biannual just checkup, and a lot of information was thrown at me and a lot of things that they want Julia to accomplish or to be a part of or whatever. And I just said this the other day to my husband. I said, we're never going to get 100% of this, ever. And I'm not going to put that expectation on me or Julia. These were experts trying to give me the ideal. And I made a mistake early on in motherhood of trying to be everything to Julia. I was trying to be your OT, speech, physical therapist. I was trying to, everything we did, I tried to incorporate these skills and these things that she needed to do, and it was not fun. And so I just, she's an adult now. She's certainly part of these decisions. And if there's something coming up, she does not want to use a walker. Okay, you know what? That's okay. Because if we can get some of this and not all of it, I'm okay with that. Because I can't cure her. Nobody can cure her. So all we're doing is just trying to, live the best life and a happy life. I don't want my child miserable because of something that she can't control. I think you have to find balance.
Oh, what a graceful existence you've offered, and what a gift for yourself and for Julia.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you for sharing that thought. It's so universal, right? That's what we want for ourselves and for anybody that we care for, is to just move through life and have some moments of joy, and
Right.
Managing our expectations is a big part of that. So
yes,
sage advice, Tammy. I love it. That's so great.
Learning every day.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much. Okay, so we've got 3 other mothers on the line right now. I see Joanna, Mary, and Marcella. So I wanted to invite you, each of you, to come on to video if you'd like, to unmute yourselves, ask any questions that you may have of Tammy, or any comments about what you heard. Mary, I see you came off of mute. Did you have anything you wanted to share with Tammy?
Well, I just thought that last part with you're able to ask your daughter what she wants to accomplish, and that's just really, all that you can accomplish is what she really wants. And I just, as coming as a professional where I used to be a teacher, you need to tell that professional, this is our life, and let's make it the best and find ways. And, if you think she needs more, well, maybe I need a new doctor. So, I mean, yeah, that is it. They're supposed to be there to help and guide you. And sometimes they need reminding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, when we're uncomfortable, or in new territory, it's easy to turn over to the expert, right? And I hear that, and it's needed, right? That guidance is appreciated. At the same time, it's a partnership, because we're the expert on our child, and nobody,
Right.
Nobody knows our child better than we do, other than maybe our child, which in Tammy's case is an adult. We never stop being moms.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, you're lucky that you have a daughter that can tell you, what what they're feeling, because that's really important and you don't have to guess. So like, yeah. But I've had lots of experiences with doctors, and lots of times they have no idea what they're talking about because the disease is so rare, and they don't live your life. And sometimes you have to remind them, what would you do in your family? Would you stress it out, or would you have a plan to go with what it is?
Right.
True story. Tammy, what did you do as sort of best practices, or Mary or Marcella? I know Marcella's at work, so she may not be able to comment, but she can listen. What did you do to brief doctors? What are some of the, did you point to websites? Did you prepare a briefing document on Julia? Like how did you get yourself in a place of partnership with the doctors that you were working with?
I went on the internet and found some written articles by some of the experts that actually were researching. And I printed them out and I said, here, this is what I'm talking about. And I understand if you've never heard of this, because her pediatrician was very honest and said, you know what, I think I had a chapter of leukodystrophy in my whole medical school career. So I kind of wanted to just let him off the hook. Now, I just had an experience recently with an endocrinologist that we'll never go back to, because I sent him articles to read. He didn't bother to read them. And I encouraged him to read them because he kept pushing hormone therapy. And then we got on the second call with the outcomes of the labs and things. And he just kind of threw a drug idea at me, and you try this. Well, I got to CHOP and I talked to another endocrinologist, and no, you don't do that. You've got to find the people that are in the know, because that could cause more damage than helping. And I think, some people just they're not able to kind of just be as bold. But it is kind of that thing where I feel like I'm her shield. And until I approve of it or I know about it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, and I have sort of witnessed difficult decisions often are helped by the power of three, right? So 3 different opinions, you learn a lot, and in the process, and then it's that odd number that can help you actually go in a direction. And so I think that's an important point is, sometimes I think doctors are put in a position of this expectation that they'll make a recommendation or fix a problem or a challenge. And, that thoughtful consideration and that gut check within yourself, because you are the expert, is really so important. Great. Joanna, I noticed that you joined. Hi, you're on mute. Do you have anything that you wanted to share or ask?
Yeah, sorry, I'm actually in the hospital right now with my daughter, but I'm like, you know what, she's asleep, and I got the email, so I'm like, I've been wanting to join, one of the events, so I want to be on here and hear, and I appreciate you guys, sharing your experiences, and just like even those few things that, like you said, a lot of early moms could benefit from. So my daughter's 3, so we're still like early in the process of everything, but I'm coming to learn a lot of the things that you all have, talked about, and being the advocates, like she just said right now, being the shield to our kids, and not being afraid to speak up and challenge the professionals, and all these things are important for our kids. I think it was Mary that said, being thankful for when your child is able to vocalize something. Unfortunately, our daughter isn't able to vocalize things. So right now we're learning still how she communicates and how to pick up on things. So, taking that into consideration. So thank you all for just sharing and welcoming us to this platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh. So I'm sort of have this dual role as a mother, but also a sibling. 3 of my older brothers had a rare disease called MPS, Hunter syndrome, and they lost their ability to speak and communicate verbally as well. But instinctually and energetically, we always knew as a family, it's not too hard to decipher happy or sad, like
Yes.
upset, right? So even though they may not have the actual words, your instincts are such an important part of that process. And I remember hearing from another mother, especially in a hospital environment, it's so hard because everything is presented as life or death. Everything is presented as this intense moment, and asking that question, do we have a few minutes to make a decision? Is this a critical moment, or do we have some time to ask more questions? Sometimes can just give you that few moments of
The process.
Process and reflect and step back a minute and think about, are there ways that we can, Tammy gave that example of, holding down and administering injections. There's so many different ways to approach an intervention like that without causing intense trauma, right? And if it's life or death, that's different. If it's routine, what can we do to prepare for this? Are there choices? Can she receive or he receive, an injection? Can they decide, or can you decide with them when and where? And are there holistic numbing creams or distraction techniques?
Yeah, just what are the options?
What are the options, right?
Treatment. And then just, a lot of our kids have multiple specialists. So it's, what, let me check in with this specialist because that may impact this, and let's all be on the same page, unless, like you said, it's a drastic, situation where the decision needs to be done right then and there. But just advocating for them and processing it. And even, we've had situations where it really has been life-threatening, and everyone's in the room just trying to do what needs to be done for her safety, but that just becomes traumatic sometimes. And even in some situations like that, I've had to give her a moment. She's in a lot of distress. Let that medication try to, process in her system, for example, like a seizure medication, and it's
good
IV things, and it's just we have to just step up, and
you're doing it.
It's hard. It is really hard, and especially in those life-threatening situations.
We're gonna collectively send some love and some hugs your way. So I'm sending you love over the transom here, and I'm seeing that Julia may have joined Tammy. Am I correct?
Hi.
Hi, Julia.
Hi.
My name's Crystal. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we've got a few different moms on the line here, just having a chat with your mom, Tammy.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any big plans today?
Shopping.
You're going shopping. Oh, fantastic. It's back to school for a lot of kids right now. So it's great news. Anything you need in particular for your shopping?
No, we're just going
clothes,
for clothes.
a dress code.
Uh, a dress coat.
The shop is called a Dress Code.
Oh, a dress
It's,
code.
It's a consignment store. It's really nice.
Oh, how fantastic. Oh my gosh. My daughter is so into thrifting. That's one of her very favorite things. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, I see my mother Phyllis has joined. Hi, Phyllis. Oh, we just had a great conversation with Tammy. And we've got a few different moms on. Mary's here again, and we just heard from Joanna.
I'm so sorry that I'm late.
It's okay.
I was taking care of someone who needed me, so I'm sorry. I'll try to be
Once
unavailable to everybody, but yeah.
once a caregiver, always a caregiver. That's how. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Marcella says, "I remember what your mom went through." So you already have some fans, Phyllis.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too.
Oh,
When I heard the story, and I can't even imagine in those times how. I mean, how do you even start? You don't have the internet. You don't have different resources. They don't even know what it is. How do you school them? How do you tell other people about them? How do you manage behaviors? I mean, it's miraculous that you were able to, do everything that you did for those boys. It's insane. I have like, you're on a pedestal higher than anybody else I know.
Thank you, Tammy, but you girls are my angels. I got through it just like you are, except you have Angel Aid and you have us. And I'm so grateful to hear your stories because and what you're going through, because it helps me to understand what I went through. Then I was just living one day at a time, living through it, but I didn't understand any of it. And now that I hear you talking, I can understand some of the things. And it takes it gives me a big happy feeling and a big deep breath whenever I hear what you guys are doing and how you're handling things. I'm so proud of all of you. And I'm glad that my story, if it helped you at all, I'm glad that you got to hear it from my daughter and from me. Thank you for letting me talk. I came in so late and I still got to talk.
yeah, no, this is all it. We've actually been having a long conversation about trusting your instincts, even as you're working in partnership with doctors and nurses and in a medical environment with the experts, that as rare mothers, we're the experts on our child. And not to ever lose track of that. And Phyllis, I remember you talking about, you had 5 children, 3 had this rare genetic disease, and the diagnosis didn't come until your 4th son. And that it was doctors at pediatrician appointment after pediatrician appointment saying, something's not right. 2 of my sons are not hitting we call them milestones now, but two of my sons aren't developing the same way as my oldest son. And tell that story about the arm. I think that's always a good.
That's a good thing to know. It was their grandmother she lived in Arizona, and she kept noticing when she would come back to visit, it would be months in between times, and she would notice that they weren't, that David was not advancing and Jared was very slow. And so every time I'd go to the doctor, I'd say, you know, I notice, and it's not just me, because you know how they make you feel like, oh, you're just being so motherly, so protective. I said, it's not just me. Their grandmother notices that there's these problems, and I want to know why. And he reassured me, sat behind his desk and reassured me again. And I said, well, wait a minute. How come their arms don't straighten out? And he got up, walked around behind his chair, pulled out a book, leaped through the pages, and then he came and he sat down. The book was still there, open on his desk, and he said, you know, I'm going to have David tested, and I'm going to have Jared tested too. We may have something going on here that's very rare. And it was just my insistence that made him finally pay attention to that there was something wrong. And so they did the test, and a week later, they told me that they had a rare disease. And I was 8 months pregnant with Randy. So when Randy was born, they tested him, and he had it also. So you don't have to apologize for insisting on knowing, because that's the only way sometimes you're going to find out. Wait.
Absolutely. And now we have this amazing opportunity going into a little bit on advocacy to, you know, take advantage of what's developed in genetics testing, right, and newborn screening, and these opportunities, and finding out if we're carriers, and, you know, doing our 23andMe's and getting more information just about our genetic background so that we can share it within the family if we want to or not, but at least just have that knowledge. Any thoughts on that for this group, on genetic testing and family planning?
You know, I have to comment. We were at a leukodystrophy. We were at a leukodystrophy kind of a family event. And after I was talking to this mom, and her baby was young, maybe 2 or 3 months old. And, you know, all this genetic testing now. And he tested positive for Krabbe or however you say it. But he wasn't showing any symptoms at all. And she had an older child, and she said, I don't know how I'm going to raise him. So in one sense, it's good to know maybe when they're a little older and you can see there's issues, but he may never show any issues. He may just be a carrier. And to be told that, you know, with your new baby, I've always said, if I knew that something was wrong with Julia when she was born right away, because she's deaf in one ear and they did not have the newborn screening for hearing when she was born, I would have been a whole totally different mother, because I would have been on high alert from the day she was born. And so I kind of have this, I'm not sure how I feel about it, because it may be really a positive experience for some. And I just, for this mom to have this baby and not know what to expect for the rest of his life, I can't even imagine what she's going through.
It's complicated, isn't it? It's sort of, knowledge can be empowering if there's a treatment or there's some sort of next step to take, right? I know with some rare diseases, and, you know, we all know the statistics, but just to, you know, there are no cures for any rare disease, and there's treatments for about 5%. So if you're screening because there's a next step to take, because maybe that baby would benefit from a treatment, or even possibly a clinical trial. I'm sort of looking at it from all different angles, Tammy, right? It's sort of receiving information that can be incredibly distressing without having a pathway to some sort of recommended course of action, can be challenging.
If I understand what you're asking and talking about, knowing is the vehicle to doing what's best for the child. And people ask, well, how did you get through that period of their lives? And my focus was always on doing what was best for them. And that within my power. And I used to say to myself, because I don't know where I heard it, but you do the best with what you have available to you. And so I just would, and they were 3 different people. They were 3 different individuals. And I treated them that way, even though they had the same symptoms and the same illness and the same problems. David was David. And when David needed something or did something, he was an individual. Same with Jared and my baby Randy. And as long as I was focused on doing what was best for them, even if it meant giving one of them up into somebody else's better care. If they were going to get better care, then there was no decision to be made. I had to do what was best for them. And no matter how hard it was for me, I had to do that. And that's how that and meditation, self-care, meditation and prayer. That's how I got through it. Yeah. So I would want to know, and I would want somebody to tell me if they suspected something. I would do it in a way that, and if I didn't know how to say it, what words to use, I'd call my daughter because she's very good with decide what to say and how to say it.
Well, we all have someone hopefully to lean on. And if we don't, you can lean on each other here at Angel Aid. So we're coming up to the top of the hour. Tammy, I'm so grateful to you for sharing your story today.
Thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. And we're so great. It was so great to meet you, Julia. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. And Joanna, we're sending you our love there in the hospital with your daughter.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice meeting you all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mary, who shared her story last week, and Marcella, I know you're at work. I just want to say thank you to all of you. Really unique, amazing women. And we're going to continue these Rare Mother Roundtables on Thursdays at 10 o'clock. I think it's a great forum. This is something new. We just started it a couple weeks ago. But yes, peace be with everyone, Marcella says. So sending you our love.
And our
Sending
hugs.
you good vibes and our hugs. Okay. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.